We'll edit that out. Well, welcome back to the garage, everyone. Today is the day, and we are going to see how far we can get in removing the transmission from this old Cadillac. You probably saw in the last video I did on this car, the flex plate is warped, or at least I believe it's warped. Go back and take a look at that video. When I fire up the engine, you can see that it's a little warped. So again, that's really not in my wheelhouse, but it doesn't look good to me. At least if I replace it, I'll know I'll covered all the bases, even though it may or may not fix the issue. So I'm going to try to fix the issue there. If that doesn't fix it, we're going to try to fix the issue back here. I think it's either in one of the two places, to be honest with you, namely the vibration I described in the last video. So today, we're going to start off by removing the drive shaft. I've got 11/16 here, 5/8 here. I've got the drive shaft, got some rope on it, and I was going to put it on like a roll around table, but I was like, you know what, I think I'm going to just try to suspend it with the ropes. I'm going to see how well that works out. It may not, you know, I just wanted to keep it up out of the way. I've got another rope back there you may or may not be able to see on the camera. And I've got my transmission jack back there with the oil drain pan on top of it, so when we pull the drive shaft out of the transmission, whatever fluid is in there, you know, we won't make a mess. So anyway, I think you get it. All right, let's go ahead and get this drive shaft out of here. Yeah, that'll work. All right, this is either going to work, not work, make a huge mess, or be entirely 100% successful. I'm going to slip my rope, lift up a little bit, slip my rope forward, give myself a little sliding leeway here, like that. And then we'll just ease it on out and grunt a little. And we'll just let it dangle. Boy, that thing's heavy. But it seems to be just fine. All right, I think we're going to remove these transmission cooler lines next. What size is that one? That's a 5/8 on the compression fitting, and the one on the transmission is a 3/4. Got my flare nut wrenches or line wrenches, whatever you want to call them here. And that's my vacuum line, goes to the modulator from the engine bay. So we'll just, you know, just remove it. Okay, enough of that. All right, let's see if we can get this out of here without too much fanfare. Let's see how well we can do here. It's kind of an awkward position. I'm going to have to move this pan out of the way. That might work. There we go. That's pretty tight. Are we leaking? Are you doing anything? All right, let's go get the pan first. I don't know, it's pretty high, so I don't think there may not be anything in there. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, there's a little. All right, I'm just going to let that drain for a little while before I loosen the other one. All right, got a little leverage action with 2 wrenches here. There we go. Got the stuck a 5/8 open end on it. Made quick business out of that. All right, I'm going to loosen that up. These stubby wrenches come in handy sometimes. The pipe is probably in a bind somewhere, and there's a little bit of tension on it. That's the reason why it's not, there we go. Yeah, under a little bit of tension. So just pull those loose from the transmission and kind of let them dangle, and that'll be fine. And we've got enough flexibility when we start moving the transmission. All right, the next step is to remove the transmission oil dipstick tube. This guy right here. And there is a bracket on the transmission where it connects to the engine. There's a bolt right there, so I'm going to take that out next. Can't really film that clearly, but it's just one bolt, so stand by and I will get that out of there. And then the transmission dipstick tube should simply just lift from the body of the transmission. All right, we've got that bolt out of there. It was in kind of in an awkward position. Probably should have lowered the car to get to it, but oh well. We should be able to remove this dipstick tube now. So let's see. It's moving. There we go. Let's see. There shouldn't be any fluid coming out of that because it's just a tube. So of course we have the dipstick itself. And I've got a little bit of tangulation up there in the engine bay. Okay. It ain't coming out. I got a wire tied to it, so I'm going to have to wrestle that out of there. I'll be right back. All right, there we go. I had a tie wrap around this and some wires. It's a pretty ratty looking job, but oh well. Of course, you have to wind that down through all that mess. And take a look at this, this O-ring on this tube is a little worse for wear. I wonder if there was some fluid trickling out of that. Ah, well, let's just set it on the workbench and keep on going. All right, so I'm going to put just a vinyl glove up there in the hole. I'm going to try to get away with, you know, not doing a transmission fluid change. I don't think we'll need to do that. Keep everything in there. So I got these little gloves everywhere to keep the fluid at bay. I've got a freezer bag on the tail of the transmission, tie wrapped up to keep the fluid from dripping out of there because it just continually drips. So that's the way it goes. I'm just trying to keep from making such a big mess is all. All right, the next step is to disconnect the trunnion lever from the relay rod and wire the relay rod up out of the way, whatever that means. I think they're talking about this doohickey. Let's see. Yeah, yep. There we go. All right. Don't want to lose any parts. All right, so you got this little cap with a couple of notches in it and a lock washer and a nut. So that should just come out of there some kind of way. All right, there's a little mark right here. It's, I guess, a wear mark, so we'll keep that in mind when we reassemble everything. But you take this, the trunnion lever, I'm assuming. I'm not in my wheelhouse, clearly. And we just pivot that downward, and then we can disconnect that. And I'll just tie wrap that rod over there and keep that out of the way. And then I'll disconnect this nut over here and remove this assembly from the transmission, and we'll get all this stuff out of the way in preparation for removing the transmission. I'm telling you, go get yourself some of these neodymium magnets from Lowe's or someplace. Look at that. There we go. Tied up out of the way. All right, that's simple enough. And that should, yep, there we go. It just comes out of the frame rail of the car. It sits in a bushing in the frame rail, so this assembly, we'll put this on the workbench and move on. All right, let's go ahead and disconnect the speedometer cable next. All right. Tie that up out of the way somewhere. All right, now kick down signal wire is next. So we just got a little clip right there. And that just should ease off. Yep, there we go, no big deal. All right, our next step is to remove the 3 bolts that hold the flex plate to the torque converter. How much trouble? Oh, yep, I'm not gonna strain myself. Let me get a cheater bar, stand by. Let's see. Well, that bolt's tight. Goodness gracious. Let me try something else. There we go. A little sharp impact really helps sometimes. Now, the service manual says to take a big screwdriver and put it right there and turn the, turn everything over so you can get to the other 2 bolts. Well, it works pretty well, actually. And of course you have to take the bolt out before you can get the screwdriver in there. All right, we've got our trusty old Walker jack here and a 2x4 placed under the back flange of the engine. And we have our trusty transmission jack under the transmission per service manual recommendation. So you want to have something underneath the back of the motor because the front engine mounts are back this way, right? So if you take the transmission out, the back of the engine has nothing to support it basically. So, and you can see our transmission tailpiece diaper bag hanging there, catching the slow drip of transmission fluid, trying to avoid making a mess. I've got the transmission jack basically set on this platform I made several years ago. Just a piece of 3/4 inch plywood with a couple of 2x4s screwed to it on either end because the hydraulic line for the lift goes across there and you can't move the transmission jack around. I did that when I pulled the trans out of the Jeep a number of years ago. Let's get a 5/8 on those 2 bolts holding the transmission to the transmission mount. Let's get those out of there next. Well, those lock washers didn't want to stay up there. They jumped right out of there. All right, these are in a little bit of an awkward position. All right, this first one right here was the most difficult. It's a bolt and the head of it is right below the floorboard of the car and there's a rubber body bushing of some sort in the way. So you can imagine, I had to get pretty inventive. It took me about half an hour just to get that first one undone, but I think the rest of them will be okay. So let's work on this next one next. You know, I think the next one is next. You know, that's just, it's a fascinating concept, how the next one. This is a pain. I'm not lying. I wish I didn't have an emergency brake cable in my way, but I'm not studying disconnecting it. Don't want to do it. May have to. Left hand to the rescue. There we go. Number 2 is down. Cooking with gas now, buddy. All right, it's going to take me, I don't know how long, 4 hours to get those other 2 bolts out through various means. So let me go do that and I'll be right back. Oh my goodness, just give me strength. Okay, I'll take you all the way off. If you want to be like that. All right, I had to pry on the floorboard a little bit there and get this back bolt out. Now it's in the channel of the, there we go. Well, that was a challenge. All right, got all those bolts out of that bracket and I've got a little upward pressure on the transmission. Got it elevated slightly off of the mount. Should be able to tap this bracket out of here without too much fanfare. Ow, that hurts my ears. Let me get some hearing protections. I lifted the bracket up, or lifted the transmission up a little bit more. Give us some room. Oopsie, what am I hitting? I'm hitting something. probably bumping up against something. Oh, there's a bolt there. Ha ha. All right, there we go. Now we're making progress. Come on out. You can do it. There we go. And let's see, what am I? Well, shoot. What is that? There's a little hook or something on that. All right. Would help if I could see. There we go. All right, so I just had to undo that little wire clip holding the emergency cable onto the transmission bracket. So this mount, by the way, is basically new, replaced a few years ago, so we shouldn't have to mess with that. But we will, I think we will remove it and then clean up this thing before we reinstall it. All right, you know, it's times like this you don't want to do something silly like forget that there is no rear support mount under the transmission when you're messing around here. I know that sounds silly, but you need to tell these things mentally. There is no support underneath the transmission down there. If you lower this jack, bad things will happen. Don't do that. Okay, so up next, we're going to remove the transmission to engine bolts. Then we'll slide the transmission rearward, and we will put this little tool, this torque converter hold down bracket, and you bolt that to the transmission, and it basically keeps the torque converter from coming out on you. And basically I just follow the example in the service manual and bang that out. Over there on the metal bench, just bent that up and drilled a hole in it, and I think that'll work out just fine. If we need to tweak it a little bit, that won't be a big deal. All right, let's take the bolts out, holding transmission to the motor. All right, let's just, let's just move it, see what happens here. I have to lower it a little bit. Get it just right. See what happens here. All right, let's see. The bottom is a little out, but the top end is still a little in. So we need to lower the transmission a little bit, I guess. All right, I lowered the jack just a touch, and I got the gap between the transmission and the engine to equal top and bottom. So it's about, I don't know, a little less than 1/8 of an inch apart from the engine. So, I don't want to put any undue stress on anything. I want this thing to just, ease on back like that, see? Well, that just moved on right back, didn't it? I think we're in a state of equilibrium here, as a matter of fact. Oh yeah, boy, that was alarming, to be sure. All right, I'm with it now. So you had my angle of my dangle. Not quite right, so anyway. We're good. It's all good, man. Let's try to move it a little further, see what happens here, okay? All right, we're touching on the bottom side of the car there, so. I believe we have enough room to put our little bracket on the transmission. Now, let's try that next. Man, you think I've done this before. Holy cow, will you take a look at that? I just need to bore that hole out a little farther and then find a nut that fits that. I put a little bend on it to give it a little bit of spring tension, kind of like. I'm going to go ahead and tighten that down. My little adjustment doohickey went someplace else. There we go. Now I got my balance situation situated there. I'm just doing a flex plate, so this is all I need to do. I don't need to move that transmission any further. All right, these flex plates bolts are 5/8. I don't know what the torque is. Apparently quite a bit. Let's do the manual impact methodology. All right, we got this flex plate over here on the workbench. And seeing as how I don't know how to tell if a flex plate is warped or not, I'm only using some common sense and some observations. And I'd appreciate any insight you guys have to offer. Maybe nothing wrong with this thing. Maybe everything wrong with it. I don't know. However, I have noticed one observation. Here's the ring gear, and then you have a chamfer, and then you have this, the center part, which is, as you know, they're welded together. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 welds. If you look here, there's a pronounced lip. This is higher here than it is, let's say, over here. So if I take my little picky tool, all right, you can put it in there and you can see about how far it goes down. To highlight an area of interest, you can see that the edge of the interior of the flex plate protrudes upward beyond the bottom of the flange on the ring gear on that side. And over on this side of the flex plate, it appears as though the center lip of the flex plate, namely this surface here, goes no farther than the bottom of the chamfer on the ring gear. On this side of the flex plate, let's shed some light on the subject, shall we? This lip appears to come a fair amount higher, see I'm dropping off there, than the bottom of this chamfer. So there's a pronounced groove there. And over here in this one particular area, which I believe is on this weld, there, that's not the case over here on this side. And along through this area here, and here's another area where the plate appears to come up. And over here is here's a significantly, this area over here is raised significantly, I would say. So there's a pretty big lip right there. But I don't know what the tolerances are. So there you go. That's my observation. I don't know if the flex plate is bad or not. I only saw it wobble on the video. And my observation is that this interior lip of the flex plate in this particular area is higher than the bottom of the chamfer on the ring gear. Right? And over here, that's not the case. There's not even a lip right there. There's not even a groove right there. This pick tool just kind of just eases on down. But if I try to ease on down over here, it stops, see? So the center part is welded to the ring gear clearly, but it's welded in there like that. Now, is this from the factory? I don't know. No, I had the transmission rebuilt back in 2017, I guess. And, you know, I don't think they put a new flex plate. This doesn't look like a new flex plate to me. It looks like a factory one. And look at these witness marks from the bolts. Look how pronounced they are. Look how boogered up that is. Man, that's trashed. Somebody may have been in here trying to fix this problem. So maybe they got in here thinking, well, maybe the flex plate bolts are a little loose. So they got in here and just, you know, cranked on them. And they just tore this metal up right here. So, I mean, that doesn't look good at all. All right, folks, there you go. I'm going to wrap this video up. That's my observation on this flex plate. It's going to be replaced. I would replace it anyway, just for boogering up those holes. But I think the center section is a little off skew. So that's my opinion. And I would really appreciate it if some flex plate experts would comment down below and help me out. That would be fantastic. But regardless, this is, you know, there's a lot of trouble getting it out of the car, so I'm going to go ahead and swap it out anyway. I'm going to get online and find a nice one to order. And if you have a recommendation, by all means, let me know. All right, folks, that's all for this first video in our anti-vibration video series. I appreciate you guys stopping by the channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to be notified whenever I release a new video where I'm standing precariously underneath a very heavy transmission, well, don't forget to click that little bell down below. You guys have a good one, and remember to enjoy wrenching on your classic Cadillac.